It's 6 in the morning, and a senior administrator opens a 40-page report before a budget meeting. There's no time to read the entire document carefully, so he turns to one page, reads it closely, and then decides to approve that $500,000 budget. Now, he might skim the rest of the report later, but whatever was on that one page is what shaped his decision, and that decision is going to affect the business and many, many lives. That page is the executive summary. Now, if the term sounds technical or unfamiliar, it can be easy to assume that it's simply a shortened introduction placed at the front of a report. It's not. An executive summary is the version of the report that must function independently, because in many professional settings, it's the only part certain readers will study carefully before making a decision. Hi guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Dr. Whitney Kosters, and I've been teaching literature and writing for the past 20 years. I have an entire playlist here on YouTube on report writing, from formatting to real-world function to revision strategies. So if you need that broader foundation, be sure to subscribe and check it out. In this lecture, we're going to define exactly what an executive summary is, distinguish it clearly from an introduction, and walk step by step through how to write one so that it can stand on its own in real decision environments. Now, an executive summary is a condensed version of a completed report that presents the situation, stakes, methods, key findings, and conclusions in a way that allows a decision maker to act without reading further. It's not a preview and it's not a general overview. Instead, it's a self-contained professional document that delivers the substance of the report in a compressed form. Writers often confuse executive summaries with intros, so it helps to see the difference in practice. Consider this example. This report examines recent delays in patient discharge procedures and explores potential causes. It analyzes discharge data, staffing levels, and placement coordination practice in order to provide insight into current challenges. Now, that paragraph sounds polished, but it's not an executive summary. While it tells the reader what the report will cover, it doesn't tell the reader what the report establishes. There are no findings, no consequences, and no conclusions, so a decision maker cannot act on it. Now compare that to this version. Over the past 12 months, average patient discharge times at City Medical Center have increased by 30%, contributing to bed shortages during peak admission times. Analysis of discharge records, staffing schedules, and placement data indicates that reduced weekend case management coverage and delays in external facility coordination are the primary causes. Extended discharge times increase emergency department wait times and operational costs. This report recommends expanding weekend case management coverage and revising placement coordination protocols to reduce discharge delays during high demand periods. Here, the situation is named directly, the stakes are visible, the basis of analysis is clear, and the recommendation is stated plainly. Even if a reader never opens the rest of the report, the core problem and proposed response are understandable. This contrast clarifies the difference. An intro provides background and outlines what will be covered, often building towards findings that appear later, while an executive summary assumes the report is complete and presents what the report establishes, naming the situation, explaining why it matters, identifying how it was analyzed, and stating key findings and conclusions directly. So while an intro prepares the reader, an executive summary delivers the outcome. I think it also helps to be clear about what an executive summary actually looks like on the page. In most professional settings, it follows a very predictable internal order. It begins by naming the specific situation and clarifying why it matters, rather than providing broad background. It briefly explains how the issue is analyzed to establish credibility, and then it presents the most important findings in prioritized form, focusing only on what materially affects the decision. And finally, it states a clear conclusion or recommendation that follows logically from those findings. In compressed form, that pattern often looks like this. First, a paragraph on situation and stakes. Second, a paragraph on analysis and key findings. And third, a paragraph stating conclusions or recommendations. So in shorter reports, these elements may appear in a single well-structured paragraph, while in longer reports, they may extend to 1 or 2 pages, but the internal order remains consistent. So here's another complete example so you can see how this structure works really clearly. Over the past fiscal year, regional sales at North Star Manufacturing have declined by 12%, despite stable overall market demand, resulting in revenue shortfalls and increased pressure on operating budgets. Because this decline has occurred primarily in the Southwest Division, leadership has requested an analysis of regional performance drivers and sales strategy alignment. This report examines quarterly sales data, territory assignments, compensation structures, and competitor pricing across all divisions from January through December. Comparative analysis indicates that the Southwest Division operates with larger territories, fewer support staff, and a compensation structure that does not incentivize new client acquisition at the same rate as other regions. Based on these findings, this report recommends restructuring Southwest territory assignments, revising the commission model to emphasize new account growth, and allocating 2 additional sales support positions to the division for the next fiscal year. Now notice the order. The first paragraph establishes the situation and its significance. The second explains the analysis and key findings. And the third states the recommendation clearly and directly. Because executive summaries carry this responsibility, they are written last. If you try to draft one before the analysis is finished, you're likely going to produce vague language and delayed conclusions since you do not yet know which findings matter most. So the executive summary must always reflect the final priorities of the report and never early assumptions. When you're ready to write, begin with a blank page and answer 5 questions, since those answers are going to shape the summary, even though the questions themselves will not appear in the final document. First, what is happening? State the situation clearly and specifically, identifying the organization or system involved and including scale if it matters. Second, why does this matter now? Explain the stakes in concrete terms, whether they involve cost, safety, compliance, efficiency, risk exposure, or strategic goals. Third, how is the situation analyzed? Provide a high-level description of the information used so that credibility is established without unnecessary detail. Fourth, what are the most important findings? Prioritize the findings that directly inform the decision rather than repeating every detail from the body. And fifth, what follows from these findings? In an informational report, this may be a concise statement of what is now understood. In a recommendation report, it must be a clearly stated course of action, since readers shouldn't have to search for what is being proposed. As you draft, remember that the logic of an executive summary differs from the logic of the full report. In the body, analysis often moves from data toward conclusions through gradual development. In the executive summary, though, conclusions and key findings appear early, and the reasoning that supports them is compressed beneath them so that a time-constrained reader can understand both the outcome and its basis quickly. Before finalizing the summary, be sure to apply some checks. Do not introduce new evidence, assume prior reading, or overload the summary with technical details, since its purpose is to condense existing analysis and support decision-making. Make sure any essential definitions or scope limits appear briefly in the summary itself, and state conclusions directly rather than implying them. And finally, test the document in 2 ways. Imagine a reader who never opens the rest of the report and ask whether that reader would understand what is happening, why it matters, how it was analyzed, what was found, and what action is being proposed. Then give the summary to someone who hasn't read the full report and ask what is happening and what action is being proposed. If those answers are unclear, revise until they are. Executive summaries often become the most influential section of a professional report because they shape how information moves upward and how decisions are justified later. When they are written deliberately and with decision-making in mind, they allow complex analysis to remain usable without distortion. So that is what it means for an executive summary to stand alone. As always, thank you so much for joining me here today. Be sure to check out my other lectures in the report writing playlist, where I walk you through each section step by step so that no matter which part of the report you're drafting, you understand not just how it's formatted, but how it functions in the real world. Be well.